Τα σπίτια μας είναι οι χώροι που ζούμε και στους οποίους αποδώσαμε τεράστια εκτίμηση τα τελευταία 2 χρόνια. Το πάνελ που θα παρακολουθήσουμε εκπροσωπεί τη φωνή των γραφείων Λακατόν Βασάλ, Πλάς Φρεντερίκ Τρουό και Περί Στοράλ. Πώς σχεδιάζουμε τη στέγαση και πώς ο σχεδιασμός μεταμορφώνει τους ανθρώπους και την περιοχή, πώς μεταμορφώνουμε αυτό που υπάρχει και πώς εμπλέκουμε αυτούς που το κάνουν σπίτι τους. Υπάρχουν ήδη απαντήσεις, αλλά σίγουρα χρειάζεται περισσότερη εμπιστοσύνη και συμμετοχή σε πολιτικό επίπεδο, όπως θα καταδείξουν οι καλεσμένοι μας. Ο Ιβάν Μπλάσης συντονίζει μια συζήτηση με τον Φρεντερίκ Τρουό και τον Χωσέ Τοράλ με θέμα Housing Forms of Living and Sustainability Through Transformation. Ιβάν.
Mainly, our important intentional goal is to understand how architecture could become a platform for everyone to create their own existence. And I believe that right now, one of the biggest crises is that architecture is imposing a way of living instead of allowing people to develop their own possibility of inhabiting this planet.
Architecture as a profession tends to be quite closed in a way. It's among its own circles. So it's one of the great challenges, how to explain it to the people, because it affects so much our everyday life. I mean, how important is the quality of our living environment? How important is the planning of our apartments?
The needs of the clients and the society are changing regarding the way we use and move in the public space. So this is a new trend. I mean, we're going to find ways to live and to experience and to connect more in the open space.
The mission today would be to rediscover the space of infrastructure by readdressing it in a way that is geared towards the multi-use, not only the car, but all the users of the public space.
The main difference, hopefully coming through the New European Bauhaus, is actually that this is becoming a general mindset in the society and also among the architects. It starts with the landscape planning, with the infrastructure, with the traffic planning, and all these factors which are coming before you start to plan a building.
I had this very naive idea about the architect author who sort of makes something, creates an object, and that is admired, hopefully. You don't need to make those gestures. We're very bad at looking after things well in our society. We're very good at sort of throwing away and starting again. And that we need to become guardianships of our built environments.
When you have a name like Mies van der Rohe attached to an award like this, there's no doubt that the aesthetic quality of a building and how the details are resolved and how the context is also carefully thought through by the architects and the planners, there's always this consideration, ultimately, the aesthetic quality of the buildings.
Many of you have moved down here to sunny Florida to retire. Say amen. Yeah. You came down here to Retirement USA. Yeah.
When we grew up, a retirement home was a place where you went to go and die. This place will add 10 years to your life.
Howdy, howdy.
Howdy, howdy.
You could relax and enjoy life.
Happy whatever day this is.
The Villages offers that escapism, and I think they underestimate what they cost the community at large. Oh! What makes the Villages the Villages? They want to control everything.
The Villages have their own rules and regulations. That's because they got money.
You just keep buying hunks of land and adding more and more.
This is the fastest growing community probably in the U.S.
We know we're in a bubble, but it's a nice bubble.
Fox News on the Voice of the Villages.
This is a weird social experiment.
How did we get in this situation?
My impression is not that the villagers are against you. Most of the villagers don't know what's going on.
It's nothing new. It's not the villages. It's how capitalism works.
They have taken everything.
People are working against this, so it's not just us.
At some point, it's just going to be a head-to-head kind of fight.
So thank you, Frédéric Drouot and José Toral from Peris Toral and Frédéric Drouot Architects. And I also want to thank Marta Peris from Peris Toral, who's also here today with us. You could sit over there and I'll sit here. To have this last panel, actually, and to speak with you about, we called it Forms of Living, no? And we decided to show these two short films. It's a trailer, both of them. One of them is a summary of what some of the ideas, opinions that the jury of this year had on how they were choosing the works. And I want to thank, obviously, the work of Spiros Pengas, the jury members, Tatiana Bilbao, Francesca Ferguson, Mia Haag, Trino Hari, Marcel Smets, and also Georg Pendel, who had a really tough work in deciding and taking decisions. And we had some very, very interesting conversations that now we're continuing here with you. And the other one, it's this community in this case in Florida, in the United States, but and the film, actually the documentary, which I really also kind of encourage people to watch, has been done by an Austrian filmmaker. She's from Austria. But this is also a situation that we find here in Europe. No? Gated communities, or this will of living in these single-family houses surrounded by a garden, which has to do with another part of the title of this panel, which is the part in which we think about ecology, about the planet, and so on. And to begin with, so we see kind of different examples, and obviously your work has a lot to do with where people live and the construction of housing, social housing, collective social housing, and also the renovation, in some cases, of existing buildings. But one of the things that appears in the trailer of The Bubble has to do with how these people choose a way of living that we can afterwards also speak about, in which they kind of choose their neighbors, so they know the average kind of people that they will find around, but there's no relationship or no interest in the whole documentary in knowing about what's happening around that space, the people that are already living there, and also how that is affecting the ecosystem, the one where there's the animals, the vegetation, but also the human one. And I think that I would like to ask you about this specific issue, about how, when you're building housing, for example, in Grand Parc in Bordeaux, or in Cornellà de Llobregat, we have this impact of that transformation from a derelict neighborhood, a place. In both cases, it's neighborhoods that people in our minds we have as places that we don't want to go to, that we should just kind of forget about, and how through these transformations, through these ways of working in these places, you have managed to slowly change that mindset, no, on how people are living and how those neighborhoods are. I don't know, Jose, if you want to begin?
Oh, yeah. Talking about the documentary, The Bubble, there are interesting things that I think they are very positive, like this idea of sharing. They get better, the way of living improves because they share some places and they can go together to some places, and this is some good things, but then they have the other hand that they need a lot of space and they have to move with these cars, so there is no walkability in this space. So it's like a utopian situation that I think here in Europe we don't understand it too much, but because in our case we understand that 70% of the territory of the city is housing. So when we do housing, we have to understand that we are part of the city, and we have to be able to being a small part of a big discussion and being able to fit there and generate this relation with the community. Because in our case in Cornellà, we were building in the same place where there used to be a cinema, and so we tried to be able to put a piece in the city that was able to give back this identity the citizens they had over there, and being able that the spaces relates with the city.
And in your case, Frédéric, in the case of Grand Parc Bordeaux, how has that changed the perspective?
I think it's changed a lot. But just before, I want just to say that I have a great respect for the stupidity. It's not my problem, in fact, because we can change everything. All the time there is this kind of organization. Okay, but if I come back to Bordeaux, it's a very large-scale housing. It's near 530 housing in the center of Bordeaux. Bordeaux is a city very bourgeoise. And when I was young, I live here, and everybody say, you don't have to go to the Grand Parc, to this city, because it's building in 62. And it was for the poor people, it was two parts of Bordeaux, really two parts of Bordeaux. And what the question is, first, is not to try to change the mentality, is just to work with people who live here, pay attention to existing things, and give the best with low money very often, but change the benefit of the situation. And consider before that it's not ugly, but it's fantastic. Because very often we speak about this kind of area or dwellings or buildings in a very bad term. And if we consider that it's not, maybe there is some problem, okay, sure, we are here for that, but there is a great capacity of this building. You can increase the benefit of each. And after that changed. We work every time from inside to outside. That means that very often I say that the scale of an apartment is the distance, the view, the perspective you have, not the number of square meters. And that means that from the Grand Parc you see the city. And that means also that you are inside, you can go in the winter garden, you can go in the balcony. It's like a villa, in fact. And if you see the city from your apartment, and if you see the apartment from the city, there is a porosity between that and that. We speak about ground floor, maybe we have to speak after that, but the question is the porosity of that. It's not the limit of the building, of each building. And I hope that when I see architecture, I don't care about architecture. I say, this building is kindly or not? No more. And if it's kindly, it could be kindly from inside and outside. And that's the participation of the city. And I don't believe in the separation of urbanism and architecture. I prefer archibanism or urbatecture, I don't know what, but that's a reality. You have urbanism and architecture. And if we stay in this way, there is just limit between that. And the porosity and what we have to speak today could be impossible. All the time impossible. There is more factory. For that, we can speak about diversity, about mixity, about many things. But when we impact a big, large scale like Grand Park, and we give the best for each people who live inside, we impact the city. And
when you speak about kindness, the kindness of buildings or of what is built, is that something personal that each person can kind of feel differently? Or is there also a certain objective way of seeing how a building can be kind to the city, to its citizens, and so on?
Kind is it's very simple. I don't know if you.
Or maybe it's me.
No,
I don't know.
Better is better maybe. Speak in English. Yeah.
That was French, so everybody was understanding you very well.
Okay. No, kindly it's very simple. It's you have the possibility to live, and you have the pleasure to live. And when you are in an apartment, you can go outside, you can move, you have a lot of fluidity, you have a lot of light. I think you have a big smile. And if you have a big smile from your balcony, the people who are in the street see your big smile, and you can smile to these people. So it's very simple, in fact. It's just to give a pleasure to each people.
And you were speaking about porosity, the ground floor, this connection of the buildings, which is also part of the kindness or the kind of way of receiving people that go home, but also those that live around. How did you work, or how do you work with that ground level, with this connection to the sidewalk, street, or other plazas?
Yeah, for us, it's important the intermediate spaces. So it is also talking about this kindness, because in the upper floors, having this intermediate space between the inner space and the city, it gives you this space of relation that makes it very easier to do these kinds of relations. So, and we also think in the ground floor that, for us it's important that you enter to your house, not where you enter up in the upper level, so when you enter in the first, with the first gate. So we in our building, we made a port, so you have this intermediate space between the city, and you keep this small distance, and then you enter through a patio, and there are 4 stairwells, but all of them, they enter through the same door. That's very important for us, because that gives this possibility of sharing one space for the community, and then all neighbors, they can meet and they can understand, they form the same community, and all of them, they enter the same door. So the house begins there. And then you're getting some more privacy spaces. So when you enter to your plan, it's a private level. When you enter through the terrace, through your house, it's a private level. When you enter to the room, to the common area of the house, it's a private level, and you enter to your room. So it's all like a sequence of privacy that begins from the street. So this, for us, it's very important to be able to make this relation between the city and the house. And also, I think this is a problem that we have in Europe, is that we have been, our ground floor has been full of commercial, and now we don't need that much commercial anymore, and we don't have these intermediate spaces in the ground level. In Barcelona, now we are talking about superillas, and we are rethinking how we have to do the streets, but we are not thinking of giving this space. The green areas are not close to the facades. So, and we are losing an opportunity to give this intimacy or this privacy or this intermediate space between, because as we cannot maintain as many commercials as we have, maybe housing is the solution of our ground floor problem. So, because we have a lack of housing and we have an excess of commercial. So we have to be able to generate these intermediate spaces that make this relation be kindly, as Frédéric says.
Because in the case of Grand Parc Bordeaux, this relationship of the ground floor with the neighborhood, it works differently than in the case of Cornellà.
Yeah, because it's Grand Parc Bordeaux is a typical case of large-scale housing. You have blocks and a great area around. And the question is, in fact, a question of porosity, but also how to entretenir. Maintain all this large area, because it's very simple in Bordeaux, but if you take the case of many suburbs, it's a big problem because nobody has money for that. And I think that it's more interesting to give this area to the people who live here rather than to let the area in a phantomatic way. Because very often municipalities do less, are not so intelligent for use this kind of area, and people can use it for easily. That I'm not sure I'm clear, but I try. I'm sorry.
Yeah, because I think it's also interesting that when we see, for example, in the bubble, the houses of the people that are living outside the bubble, we could say, or we all live in bubbles, but maybe different ones, that they have these single-family houses, farmhouses, which have the porch, and that's a relationship to a garden, and then the relationship to the forest and to the street. And the others have these houses that they have looked up online, on internet, and then you can choose. You can see on internet, on their webpage, you can choose different models and so on. But it's this kind of very similar prototype of house in which there's parking garage or main door, and directly this connection with the car. So here you were already introducing this issue, of how we also meet outside our houses, and not in this case probably immediately, but they have to travel, they have to take their car to go to a place, which is the plaza, where they will have certain other uses, other communal uses. So what you were speaking about walkability, I think would be interesting to discuss.
To be sustainable, we have to not only do a building that is sustainable, it has to be in a place that is sustainable. And that means that you have to be able to be the 15-minute city. So you have to be in a distance walking, 15 minutes to a hospital, to the school, to all the services that you need to do your daily life. And I think in these kinds of places, they solve it taking the car and then going to a center and then having like these common areas. But also, if they want more services, they have to go outside to the city. So maybe being in the city and having like this relation. So that's why in Spain it's very important the public transportation. So having this relation with the metro or with that helps to make this 15-minute city, and I think this is why in Europe we take it differently than in the documentary.
In any case, when you see the documentary, it's interesting because many of these people, or most of these people, have lived most of their lives in big towns or cities, and they are kind of fed up. They consider that they have already given everything that they were supposed to give to society, and now it's their turn to enjoy their lives. So what they have in their image, in their minds, and so on, is that this perfect life, the space that they want to live during retirement and so on, is about a house with a garden. In this kind of community. I think it was interesting what you, Frédéric, were saying before, that probably what you are also working for is to understand that if the quality of the apartments, the housing, the typologies is as the ones that we find in Cornellà or we find in Grand Parc, then probably we'll start changing this mindset. Would that be kind of the way that you work in the quality of buildings, so that, because it's impossible that all of us live in a garden house, and it's not, as you were saying, possible if we want this dense city?
Yeah, it's for this reason we speak about villa when we work on, first, it's very interesting to work on existing building, because that gives the possibility to create some space very large and very atypic. And you spend generally from a good situation to the wonderful situation. And when you speak about villa, we consider the same question. Say you are inside, you can go outside, and you can move, you have flexibility, you can pass from the living room by the winter garden and the balcony to the room or the bedroom or something like that. You have a big liberty. It's like in a villa. And I think it's near what they have. They have the liberty to go outside, to come inside. We don't have golf, we don't have this sort of amusement, but we give all the time the capacity to live very simply and with a lot of flexibility and fluidity. And I think it could be interesting to work on that. At the beginning of pandemia, sorry about everybody speak about pandemia. Okay, me too. So in Paris, there is some publicity who say, okay, because everybody was inside, they say, okay, speak to your neighbor from your balcony. But there is no balcony. So it's an invention. There is no balcony, not enough. No. So we have to work in the rapport of the porosity from inside to outside. And it could be changed, this kind of comportment. I don't know, but I don't care about this kind of guy, but I'm very preoccupied by people who have small housing and a lot of people inside, and we try just to give the best for them. And we can do that. If we consider, if we see if we do that, okay. Sorry.
Okay, thank you for that. I have one, I think, last question actually, because there's something that I think is also very interesting to have in mind. We've been speaking about data and how collecting data can be useful for different aspects and so on. But I think that sometimes we have to differentiate also between research and data. And your projects also come from research, from thesis, from thinking that doesn't say, oh, now I woke up and the floor plan, this typology is the one, or extending. And so I would like to, on the one hand, underline the importance of, we always speak about Lacaton and Vassal, and they're absolutely great, and they merit all the prizes and so on. But together with Frédéric Drouot, and Frédéric Drouot was really on top of a research project which is called PLUS, and which started with Paris, but then you've also kind of dealt with this investigation, this research in other cities around the world. But I would, and in the case, it should be Marta maybe answering, but there was also a thesis, a PhD doctorate on the filmmaker Othu and the floor plan in the Japanese culture that also had an influence, in that case. So I wanted to at least give you the opportunity to say some words about these previous steps, which are so important and that give many tools also to politicians in many cases to improve things, although sometimes, unfortunately, they're not used as much as we would like.
Yeah, I begin.
You begin, yeah, Jose.
No, because in our project, the important thing is that there is an investigation in the typology, because the aggregation is not the dwelling anymore, it's the room. So we try to begin to think what happens if all the rooms are the same, and very interesting things happen, because if they are all equal, there is no hierarchy in the house. So we find out that we have a house that has no hierarchy, and that means something for the family and for the roles genders. And also, if they are all the same, there are more flexibility because everyone can change the rooms and you can interchange the spaces. So even though everything looks very rigid, it's more flexible, and you have this indetermination of the space that gives the user the capacity to choose how they want to live. So the clue was, which has to be the size to this to happen. And that's where the PhD of Marta about the Japanese house gave us the clue of using the Japanese 8-tatami room. In Japan, they don't call the spaces by, sorry.
I think you have to look that way. When you
Okay.
turn around, then it's,
sorry.
I think.
They don't call the spaces by their use, they call it by their... They call it by their size. So this is...
So they don't call it by the names of the spaces, but instead by their sizes. I
Yeah,
think. Now
so an 8-tatami room, it doesn't work, no? Okay. Does it work?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So the 8-tatami room is a room for 8 persons, and the Japanese culture they reprogrammate the uses of the room during the day. So that's why the rooms we choose, they are 13 square meters. They are bigger than the usual, and that's why it gives some flexibility to this space.
Frédéric, could you tell us briefly about Plus, please?
No.
That's not that easy. It's
Not
a real
about
incredible...
Plus, yeah. We take the experience of Bordeaux and Paris, and we say, okay, if we want to work on the city, we can find the possibility to on the existing area, find the possibility of many extension and many transformation. We have to take case by case all the city, point by point, dwelling by dwelling. It's a lot of work, but we can find wonderful apartment and increase the density of each city without new road, without new réseau. Yeah, okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Without cutting trees, without expropriation, without nothing. That means that the city don't move, but they are more kindly just after that. I can shorter, it's impossible.
No, it is absolutely impossible.
No,
It was several years of work.
just one point, which seems very important. We speak about housing, we speak about city. We have a problem in France. Maybe I think it's everywhere. It's a selection of housing, office, We put everything in the box. We have a problem of capacity. You speak about area we need to work, not so far. We have to change something. We have to speak maybe not architecture, but capacity. Capacity to work, capacity to live, capacity to move. And we have to speak about reversibility of each kind of building. That means that we have to adapt some kind of construction. When I see your apartment, it's incredible. It could be also an office. It's very simple. But we have to change the norms and the rules in the same time. That means that it's also a political problem.
Thank you very much, Frédéric and José. We thought we would not fill in the time. We managed.
Thank you, Ivan.
Thank you very much.